Manchester by the Sea is one of those movies that isn't trying to make you think, but rather trying to make you feel. It isn't interested in entertaining you, or giving you jump scares, or something to talk about with your friends. It instead is trying to store up the type of emotions in you that you wouldn't want to discuss with anyone else, because they're too personal and too powerful. A movie about a man whose own drunkenness leads to his children perishing in a fire isn't exactly setting out to be a crowd pleaser. It wasn't made to go number one on the Netflix top 10 or to have queues going around the corners from people trying to get into the theatre. It's a movie that was made because the people making it felt it had to be made, that these type of stories are real too, and keeping them hidden underneath big stones is some type of injustice, some type of repression or delusion. Life isn't all candy. Tragedies happen, and one of the purposes of art is to allow tragedy to come out into the open in a form that allows you to accept it. Beauty and tragedy are really polar opposites, and yet this movie about a tragedy is beautiful, very beautiful. The music, the cinematography, the dialogue, the acting, the setting, the editing, everything. There's very little noise and very little action. Instead, the life of the characters just kind of meanders its way through the screen. The petty mundanities of fixing the leaking water pipes of a woman's apartment is a scene in the movie that shouldn't stand out. But what about this is interesting? But it's exactly the fact that this type of banality and frustration is never shown in major Hollywood movies that makes it interesting. Movies about real people living real life can feel somewhat revolutionary. Imagine trying to process the tragedy of your kids dying while some person is lambasting you for the fact that their shower is leaking. This is the type of mental anguish that surpasses anything Iron Man might experience when battling Thanos. This is real, unpleasant life with no sugarcoating. Lee's relationship with his nephew Patrick is basically the only thing keeping him engaged with life. He recognizes that he has a responsibility here, and that sabotaging his own life is one thing, but sabotaging his nephew's is quite another, and he doesn't want to do that. He makes the required effort to assist in being the necessary father figure that Patrick needs, and finds some sort of redemption in that. This slow, subtle redemption arc is the thread which knits the whole movie together. The final scene where Lee and Patrick go fishing together on Joe's refurbished boat is a poignant one, and provides validity to Lee's decision to persist. There is a type of victory in the fact that Lee manages to keep going and eke out some type of life, and be helpful and emotionally there for Patrick, despite the enormity of the loss he experienced. In a way, he is quite a heroic figure, despite also being clearly to blame for what happened to his children, and the fact that he also cuts a sad and tragic figure for most of the movie. He isn't a hero in the way James Bond is a hero, but sometimes just persisting is quite the feat. One of the advantages of the movie being light on action is that when the director finally wants to insert some action in the movie, it packs quite the punch, as it breaks vividly with the rest of the movie. The scene where Lee is in the police station and grabs the officer's gun and tries to shoot himself is completely out of the blue and shocks the audience more effectively because of that. The score in this movie is particularly beautiful. It's by Leslie Barber, and honestly, I would recommend the movie based on the soundtrack alone. I also love the way the movie is shot, with long, simple shots, just letting the images and situations present themselves to the viewer. A movie that needs snappy, fast cuts is a movie with nothing to say. Kenneth Lonergan does a fantastic job, both writing and directing, and it doesn't surprise me to learn that he is a playwright. Stories are always found within characters, and never in action. How characters react to actions is the basis for all story, and for all life. This movie can be a tough watch, but sometimes life can be a tough watch, and if you can bear it, there is still beauty to be witnessed.